What if your passport didn't just let you enter a country, but made people trust you, respect you, and treat you like a VIP before you even spoke a word? What if being Singaporean in 2026 meant faster smiles, better service, stronger business respect, and silent admiration, not because you demanded it, but because your country earned it? Today on infoSphere, we reveal 15 countries where Singaporeans are treated like VIPs in 2026. And the reasons behind that respect may surprise you. In a world where borders are tightening, trust is shrinking, and passports are increasingly judged, Singapore stands apart. Not because it is loud. Not because it forces influence. But because it built something rare, credibility. In 2026, the Singapore passport is not just a travel document. It is a symbol of reliability, discipline, economic strength, and neutrality. Governments trust it. Businesses respect it. Societies quietly admire it. Singaporeans are often seen as low-risk travelers, high-value professionals, serious investors, law-abiding global citizens. And that perception changes how they are treated, from airport counters to boardrooms, hotels, universities, and even social interactions. This video is not about luxury tourism. This is about real-world respect, earned over decades. Let's begin. Number 15. Iceland. Iceland may be small, but its treatment of Singaporeans is surprisingly warm and respectful. In 2026, Iceland values responsible tourism and sustainable partnerships. Singaporeans are seen as ideal visitors, respectful, orderly, and environmentally conscious. At borders and local institutions, Singapore passport holders encounter openness because Iceland associates Singapore with low-risk travel behavior. Socially, Singaporeans are welcomed with curiosity rather than suspicion. Icelanders admire Singapore's ability to thrive with limited space and resources, a challenge they understand in their own way. In 2026, Singaporeans in Iceland are treated like guests who belong, not outsiders passing through. Number 14. Finland. Finland's respect for Singaporeans is quiet, intellectual, and deeply institutional. Finland values education, social order, and long-term planning. Singapore's global reputation aligns strongly with these priorities. At universities and research institutions, Singaporeans are seen as serious contributors. Finland recognizes Singapore's strong STEM education and disciplined learning culture. In immigration and professional settings, Singapore passport holders benefit from Finland's trust in Singapore's governance and low migration risk. Socially, Singaporeans are appreciated for their respect for personal space, rules, and community norms, values Finns hold dear. In 2026, Singaporeans in Finland experience respect rooted in intellectual credibility. Number 13. Hong Kong. Despite global shifts, Hong Kong in 2026 continues to treat Singaporeans with exceptional familiarity. Hong Kong and Singapore are often compared, rivals in finance, logistics, and global influence. But rivalry has bred respect. At immigration, Singapore passport holders are recognized as low-risk, high-credibility travelers. The shared history of strict governance and global finance creates mutual confidence. In banking, law, and professional services, Singaporeans are often treated as insiders. Hong Kong institutions understand Singapore's regulatory rigor and global standards. Socially, Singaporeans integrate easily. Shared urban density, efficiency, and multicultural environments reduce cultural friction. In 2026, Singaporeans in Hong Kong are not treated as foreigners trying to prove themselves, they are treated as equals from a parallel system. Number 12. Denmark. In 2026, Denmark treats Singaporeans with a level of trust that many foreigners never experience. Denmark is one of the world's most system-driven societies. Trust is extended carefully, and only to those perceived as responsible, compliant, and socially conscious. Singaporeans benefit greatly from this mindset. At immigration and municipal offices, Singapore passport holders are often processed smoothly because Denmark associates Singapore with low abuse of public systems and high respect for rules. In education and research, Singaporeans are regarded as disciplined, high-performing individuals who adapt well to collaborative environments. Danish institutions value Singapore's emphasis on merit and efficiency. In professional life, Singaporeans are welcomed into innovation, sustainability, and urban planning sectors, areas where Denmark sees Singapore as a peer nation rather than a junior partner. Socially, Singaporeans are respected for their quiet professionalism. Danes value modesty, punctuality, and reliability, traits commonly attributed to Singapore culture. In 2026, Singaporeans in Denmark experience something powerful: trust without constant monitoring. Number 11. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's relationship with Singapore has transformed dramatically, and by 2026, Singaporeans are treated with growing prestige. As Saudi Arabia modernizes its economy and governance systems, it looks to countries that successfully balance development with social order. Singapore is frequently cited as a reference point. At immigration and professional entry points, Singapore passport holders benefit from Saudi Arabia's trust in Singapore's governance model and workforce discipline. In urban development, finance, logistics, and smart city planning, Singaporeans are welcomed as experts rather than outsiders. Their experience with complex, high-density systems aligns with Saudi ambitions. Hospitality and service sectors increasingly recognize Singaporeans as respectful, rule-following guests. A valued trait in a society undergoing rapid change. In 2026, Singaporeans in Saudi Arabia are treated as partners in transformation, not just visitors. Number 10. France. France may surprise some, but in 2026, Singaporeans experience a form of refined respect in French institutions and society. France values education, culture, diplomacy, and state capacity. Singapore's global reputation as a highly organized, efficient, and globally connected nation earns admiration within French policy and academic circles. At immigration and academic institutions, Singapore passport holders are often viewed as serious candidates rather than uncertain applicants. Singapore's low-risk profile matters in a system that values predictability. In business and luxury sectors, Singaporeans receive professional courtesy and trust. French firms see Singapore as Southeast Asia's most stable gateway, and Singaporeans as disciplined, multilingual professionals. Socially, Singaporeans are often perceived as cultured, respectful, and globally aware, a perception that reduces stereotyping. In 2026, Singaporeans in France experience institutional respect backed by cultural curiosity. Number 9. Qatar. Qatar's treatment of Singaporeans in 2026 reflects strategic respect rather than casual hospitality. As Qatar positions itself as a global hub for finance, aviation, and diplomacy, it actively seeks talent and partners from countries with strong governance reputations. Singapore stands high on that list. At immigration, Singapore passport holders experience efficient entry because Qatar views Singapore as a low-risk, high-value partner nation. In aviation, logistics, and finance, Singaporeans are treated as professionals who understand complex systems. Qatari institutions trust Singapore-trained expertise, especially in urban planning, port management, and financial regulation. Hospitality and service sectors often offer Singaporeans elevated professionalism. Not because of wealth, but because Singaporeans are known to be respectful, orderly, and contract compliant. Government-to-government cooperation reinforces this trust. Singapore's neutrality and diplomatic balance make its citizens welcome even in sensitive sectors. In 2026, Singaporeans in Qatar are treated less like foreign workers and more like strategic contributors. Number 8. Netherlands. In 2026, the Netherlands treats Singaporeans with a level of openness that is both professional and social. The Dutch deeply respect efficiency, transparency, and global thinking, traits they strongly associate with Singapore. Because of this, Singaporeans are often viewed as people who fit the system rather than disrupt it. At immigration and residency offices, Singapore passport holders benefit from the Netherlands' confidence in Singapore's governance and travel discipline. There is less suspicion, fewer unnecessary questions, and smoother processing. In business environments, Singaporeans are welcomed as serious contributors. Dutch companies see Singapore as Europe's most reliable Asian trade and logistics partner. A Singaporean professional is therefore treated as someone who understands international regulations, contracts, and ethical standards. Universities and research institutions regard Singaporean students as highly competitive and globally prepared. Collaboration with Singapore institutions further strengthens this perception. Socially, Singaporeans are appreciated for being direct yet respectful, a balance that aligns well with Dutch culture. There is less cultural distance and more mutual understanding. In 2026, Singaporeans in the Netherlands are treated not as outsiders, but as trusted global citizens. Number 7. New Zealand. New Zealand's respect for Singaporeans is calm, consistent, and deeply genuine. In 2026, New Zealand sees Singapore as a stable, rules-based nation whose citizens bring value rather than pressure. At immigration, Singapore passport holders benefit from New Zealand's confidence in Singapore's travel behavior. The assumption is legitimacy, not risk. In business and entrepreneurship, Singaporeans are welcomed as investors and innovators. New Zealand values Singapore's financial stability and regional connections, especially in Asia-Pacific trade. Educational institutions respect Singaporean students for their discipline and global mindset. Singapore's academic reputation opens doors quietly. Socially, Singaporeans are appreciated for their low-drama, respectful approach to community life. New Zealanders value humility and cooperation, traits commonly associated with Singapore culture. In 2026, Singaporeans in New Zealand enjoy something rare: respect without pressure to prove themselves. Number 6. Australia. Australia treats Singaporeans with a familiarity that feels almost domestic, and that is no accident. In 2026, Singapore remains one of Australia's most trusted partners in Asia. Decades of educational, military, and economic cooperation have built deep institutional confidence. At airports, Singapore passport holders often experience smoother entry processes because Australia statistically associates Singapore with very low immigration risk. Singaporeans rarely overstay, rarely seek asylum, and rarely violate visa terms, a record Australian authorities respect. In education, Singaporean students are considered elite. Australian universities actively recruit Singaporeans, viewing them as disciplined, academically prepared, and financially reliable. Professionally, Singaporeans are welcomed into finance, engineering, healthcare, and technology sectors. Employers trust Singapore credentials and work ethics, often placing Singaporeans into leadership tracks faster than many foreign hires. Socially, Australians view Singaporeans as polite, pragmatic, and easy to integrate. There is little cultural friction, and mutual respect is common. In 2026, Singaporeans in Australia are treated less like foreigners and more like trusted regional partners. Number 5. South Korea. South Korea's treatment of Singaporeans has evolved significantly, and by 2026, it reflects admiration rather than mere friendliness. South Korea views Singapore as a model of what a disciplined, innovation-driven Asian nation can achieve. This perception directly influences how Singaporeans are treated across institutions and society. At immigration, Singapore passport holders benefit from South Korea's trust in Singapore's travel discipline. The assumption is simple: Singaporeans come for legitimate reasons and leave on time. In business and technology sectors, Singaporeans are welcomed as serious collaborators. South Korean firms respect Singapore's role as Southeast Asia's gateway for technology, finance, and regional expansion. A Singaporean professional is often seen as someone who understands both Western and Asian business culture, a valuable bridge. Universities and research institutions regard Singaporean students as competitive, hardworking, and globally trained. This reputation reduces barriers and increases opportunity. Socially, Singaporeans are perceived as modern, respectful, and globally aware. Unlike tourists seen as careless or culturally insensitive, Singaporeans tend to observe norms, something South Koreans notice and appreciate. By 2026, Singaporeans in South Korea are not just visitors. They are recognized participants in Asia's future economy. Number 4. Switzerland. In 2026, Switzerland treats Singaporeans with a form of respect that is subtle, powerful, and deeply institutional. Switzerland does not admire loud nations. It respects countries that operate with precision, neutrality, and financial discipline, qualities Switzerland sees reflected in Singapore. This creates an immediate sense of familiarity when Singaporeans arrive. At border control and residency offices, Singapore passport holders are often processed efficiently because Switzerland associates Singapore with low security risk and high compliance. Singaporeans are statistically unlikely to overstay, violate visa conditions, or misuse social systems, and Swiss authorities quietly value that. In financial and corporate circles, Singaporeans are often treated as peers rather than outsiders. Swiss banks, investment firms, and multinational corporations view Singapore as Asia's most trusted financial hub. A Singaporean professional is therefore seen as someone who understands discretion, regulation, and long-term thinking. Socially, Singaporeans blend well into Swiss society. Respect for rules, cleanliness, punctuality, and personal space earns approval in a culture where order is not optional, it is identity. In 2026, Singaporeans in Switzerland experience something rare: silent acceptance without suspicion. Number 3. Germany. Germany does not hand out respect easily, but when it does, it is serious. In 2026, Singaporeans enjoy a quiet VIP status in Germany because the two nations share something rare: respect for systems. German institutions value efficiency, compliance, and reliability. Singapore's global reputation mirrors those values almost perfectly. As a result, Singaporeans are often viewed as people who won't waste time. At immigration and residency offices, Singapore passport holders encounter fewer complications because Germany statistically associates Singapore with low asylum risk, low illegal employment risk, and high return compliance. In corporate environments, Singaporeans are treated as equals. German companies respect Singapore's role as Europe's most trusted Asian business gateway. Singaporeans are seen as trained professionals who understand contracts, timelines, and accountability. Academically, Singapore's students and researchers are highly respected. Germany views Singapore's education system as rigorous and practical, producing graduates who perform, not just theorize. Socially, Singaporeans are appreciated for being direct but respectful, a balance Germans value deeply. There is less suspicion, fewer stereotypes, and more openness. In 2026, Singaporeans in Germany experience something rare: institutional respect without needing personal connections. Number 2. United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates treats Singaporeans like strategic guests, not temporary visitors. In 2026, Singapore and the UAE share deep similarities. Small but powerful states, logistics hubs, financial centers, and rule-driven systems built on global trust. Because of this, Singaporeans entering the UAE are often viewed as investors, not tourists; professionals, not job seekers; long-term contributors, not short-term visitors. At airports in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Singapore passport holders move efficiently through immigration because the UAE recognizes Singapore as a low-risk, high-value nation. This is not accidental, it's policy shaped by reputation. In business circles, Singaporeans receive immediate credibility. A Singapore passport signals financial discipline, regulatory understanding, and clean business practices, qualities the UAE actively seeks as it diversifies beyond oil. Hospitality staff, landlords, and service providers often treat Singaporeans with elevated professionalism. Not extravagance, but reliability. Singaporeans pay on time, follow contracts, and respect systems. In a fast-moving city like Dubai, that matters. Government-to-government trust also plays a role. Singapore's neutral diplomacy and strong governance make its citizens welcome in sensitive industries like finance, logistics, and technology. In 2026, being Singaporean in the UAE often means doors open faster, not because of wealth, but because of confidence in character. Number 1. Japan. In 2026, Japan treats Singaporeans with a level of respect that goes far beyond formal politeness. Japan values discipline, order, efficiency, and social responsibility, the same traits the world associates with Singapore. Because of this cultural alignment, Singaporeans are often viewed as people who understand how things work in Japan. At immigration, Singapore passport holders experience smoother processing not because of privilege, but because of trust. Japanese authorities statistically associate Singapore with low overstay risk, low crime risk, and high compliance. That reputation matters in a country where rule following is deeply respected. In business settings, Singaporeans are welcomed as serious partners. Japanese companies see Singapore as Asia's most stable gateway, and Singaporeans as professionals trained in precision and long-term thinking. This creates an invisible VIP effect: meetings move faster, explanations are more direct, and trust is extended earlier than usual. Socially, Singaporeans are perceived as respectful outsiders. Unlike tourists from louder cultures, Singaporeans are known to observe rules, queue properly, and respect public space. That behavior earns quiet approval in Japanese society, where harmony matters more than charm. In universities and research institutions, Singapore students are often seen as high-quality candidates. Japan recognizes Singapore's education system as disciplined, competitive, and globally aligned. In 2026, Singaporeans in Japan are not treated as foreigners to manage, they are treated as foreigners to respect. So what does all this really mean? It means that in 2026, respect is no longer about size, military power, or loud influence. It is about credibility. Singapore built a reputation so strong that its citizens carry invisible trust across continents. From Europe to the Middle East, from Asia to the Pacific, Singaporeans are welcomed not because they demand respect, but because they consistently earn it. And that may be the most powerful form of global influence in the modern world. If you want more deep-dive global stories like this, make sure you stay connected with infoSphere, where we explain how the world really works, beyond headlines. The question now is simple. If a small nation can earn this level of global respect, what does that say about the future of the world?